In this video series, I'm going to show you how I apply 4 key design principles that you should be using in every single communication that you create. In this video, we'll be covering
alignment. So if you haven't watched my previous video on the 4 key design principles, go do that now. But if you have, you'll remember that alignment is really important for connecting elements so that nothing feels out of place. It's also important for creating order and helping your reader navigate through your communication. So let's take a look at how I apply alignment.
So to illustrate how to apply these design principles, I'm going to use a resume. So at the moment, these are exactly the same. What I've tried to do is replicate a fairly standard resume. In some cases, I have exaggerated a little bit just so that I can really show you what I mean by each design principle. But essentially, I've tried to keep it true to some little things that people tend to do in their communication. So what I'm going to do is keep this original here, and I'm going to work on this side and show you how to apply alignment. Now, one thing I will point out is you won't normally, when creating a communication, only apply one design principle at a time. So as I go through this video series, you might see little things stand out that need to be changed, and they're going to be changed along the way. But this way I can really show you how to apply each one by one. So talking about alignment, the first thing I want to do is really focus in on centered text. So this first paragraph here is centered, and this is something that a lot of people tend to do with body text. So in this example, we've only got 2 lines of text, so it's not too bad. But if you've got a lot of text, it will have indents all the way through, and that is really hard to read, and it just doesn't look neat. So one thing I highly recommend is to always make sure body text is left aligned. So one important point to highlight when working with alignment is you need guides. You shouldn't be doing anything just from the way you visually look at it. You should be using the rulers in whatever tool you're using, and if it has guides available, which things like PowerPoint do, always use guides. So I'm going to create a guide, and I'm going to use this as the core alignment to the rest of the text. So as you can already see, these dot points are overhanging as well as the dashes. So we're going to move that. We'll start with the dot points. So I'm going to move that over. The other thing I see a lot is having indented text, which then creates this hanging bit of text, which does not look neat. And it also is a little hard to read. So I'm going to fix that up as well. And so now it looks a lot cleaner. I'm going to do the same for the dashes down the bottom as well. So what I've done is align this text with this text. So now I want to point out the headers. I don't have a specific issue with headers being centered. And once we get into the other design principles, there are some things you can do to make these stand out. So essentially with a resume, what you want to achieve through design principles is really easy recognition of where all the information sits. So you want it to be really obvious that there is a section here, there is a section here, and there is a section here. But at the moment, it all kind of blends in. It's not that easy to read because you're going from overview to here. But that being said, if you were to apply some other design principles we talk about later, you could easily leave it centered. But I want to really hit home that idea that text does not need to be centered, and left align can work just as well. So I'm going to actually left align all the header text as well. As for the name and contact details, it's the same. We could apply some design principles that I'm going to talk about later and make it really stand out and look good centered. but it doesn't need to be centered, so I'm going to just left align all this as well. So now if I just take away the guides, I'm just going to zoom out and show you the original to compare. So there's still a lot to do with this resume. It's not as neat as it could be, but if you compare it to the before, it is looking a lot more neater, clearer, and starting to look more professional. So stay tuned for the next video in the series where we'll talk about proximity. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit subscribe, and if you've got any questions about what I've shown you in this video or any design related questions at all, feel free to add a comment down below.